This next hour is going to talk about adolescent sexual and reproductive health rights. And we're joined by two ladies. Naomi Kijani is a school health department, works with the school health department at the Nairobi City County Government. And Adeline Nyange is a project officer at the Africa Youth Transformation. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Welcome to the hot seats of the Situation Room.
Thank
How does it
you.
feel, Adeline? Does it feel warm and comfortable?
Yes, thank you very much for having us.
Very good.
Yeah.
Karibuni sana. Naomi, how does it feel?
I feel good. I feel you've welcomed me well.
Nairobi inawak.
Nairobi inawak.
Okay.
Inawak.
Lazima iwak.
Lazima iwak.
Sawa. Haya, City. The proverb.
For the whole of this week, we have been looking at proverbs from the Republic of Botswana. But interestingly, last week, this week, and the week that is to follow, we're looking at proverbs from landlocked countries in Africa. Now, this is where we ask you to participate. Mention one landlocked country in Africa. Not Uganda, not Rwanda, not Burundi. Okay, start.
I wanted to say Uganda.
Think again.
Any other? Hazard a guess.
Just hazard a guess. Landlocked, in the middle of Africa.
Naomi?
Chad?
Good. Yes, indeed. Chad is landlocked.
You're bailing me. Can I talk of Somalia?
No.
You can, but it isn't landlocked.
It's not
It has a huge coastline.
Oh, sure.
Moves slightly inland after Somalia. There's a country that borders us also. And then it also borders Ethiopia and it also borders Sudan. Hey, I've literally told you.
Think LAPSET. What does LAPSET stand for?
And think of Salva Kiir.
Southern Sudan.
Well done. Okay. And the proverbs this week are from?
The Republic of Burundi. Okay?
No, we moved from Burundi last week.
I'm glad that you pay attention. It is Botswana. Good.
Yeah.
Yes, my colleague here pays attention. Right. Famine hides under the granary.
Famine hides under the granary.
What is your interpretation of this proverb?
Famine hides under the granary. I'll interpret it as sometimes the people closest to us may miss the signs completely. Because I want to imagine that granary means there's abundance of food, and in this context there's still famine that's hiding under it. So I can interpret it as sometimes you may be close to someone but you may be missing the signs.
That is a very interesting interpretation. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I think in this proverb, we have two components. We have farming, that is the farm, and the granary. You find that the plants are being planted in the farm, but they'll be stored in the granary. So you can be able to see a farm somewhere with nothing, but you won't be able to tell that the crops which were there, they are in the granary, not in the farm after they have ripe, rather they have been harvested.
Yes.
So most of the time, how I can interpret it is that those people who are working hard, or rather who are doing something, there's one person, those people who are working hard, their efforts, they can be described they are not seen, but there is one person where all the glory goes to.
Very good interpretation. Very nice
Nice.
interpretation. Very nice.
Yeah. People are working very hard, but you only notice someone.
Yeah.
Someone carries all the glory.
Yeah.
That's a good one. That's a good one, very much, Naomi. Now, let's talk about what we want to talk about today. This is our Health Friday conversation. Today we're going to have two Health Friday conversations. There's a new Health CS. So the next hour we'll talk about what the Health CS should expect when she gets into office. But this one is about adolescents and their sexual and reproductive health rights.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, this is something that people always talk about, sexual and reproductive health rights for adolescents. What are those? And I want to start with you, Adeline. When we say sexual and reproductive health rights, what do we mean?
In the context of adolescents, basically, we mean that these are rights or other specific rights and needs related to adolescents that help them realize their sexual and reproductive health rights and also help them to make better life choices. Such rights may be right to information, right to decision making, and also rights to confidentiality. We also talk of right to protection from harm. Yes, this is in the context of adolescents.
Why is it important? I mean, children have rights. Why do we now come and start categorizing them as sexual and reproductive health rights? Why are these sexual and reproductive health rights important for children?
Such rights are important because I'd like to bring in some data. Yeah. From the Africa Center of Experts on the Rights of Welfare of the Child, it was released in 2022. It stated that teenage pregnancy in Africa is at 25%, and Africa is mostly affected due to poverty, low level of education, economic status, and community attitudes. And also, pregnancy and childbirth complications are the leading causes of death among girls 15 to 19 years. And violence against children is 18% in Kenya, which is the highest compared to other countries. So that's why sexual and reproductive health rights among adolescents is very key to talk about, because now we just want to create awareness on the issues that are affecting young people, and we want not just the adolescents but even the community members. We want the whole society to know about them so that we can help them make better life choices.
Okay. What are the challenges in this, Naomi?
So some of the challenges we are having, currently we are having absent parents. And most of the time I usually say sometimes it's hard even to blame them because you want your kids to eat and go to school. So you leave early in the house and come back late in the house. And at the end of the day, these kids are started being influenced by media, by peer pressure. So as a result of that, when the kids are being influenced by such the media and the peer and then also the environment status, they don't have somebody to teach them what is supposed. So that has really caused a lot of things, lack of awareness, or rather they have inadequate information. You find that there's a day I was talking to the teens. They were telling me, Erin is ball. Me ball tunjo na gopa. No. Hence they don't have information about HIV/AIDS. They don't have information about hepatitis B and sexual transmitted diseases, which are also a threat to them.
So the biggest threat to them is pregnancy?
Is pregnancy.
Why?
I think the responsibility of raising the kids. They feel that, I cannot raise a kid because I lack. So that has really brought a lot of issues with us. So the biggest thing that the inadequate knowledge about reproductive health. Because if you have, I was talking to Adolescent, I was telling her, if you are able to know about the challenge at a certain stage in life, you'll be able to prepare how you will deal with it later. So the biggest problem we are having is knowledge gap.
Do you think adults are okay with this?
Yes.
Do you think adults are okay with because adolescents are children, okay?
Sure.
We look at them as children. Do you think parents are okay with their children getting this awareness, this information about, their sexual and reproductive health rights, having these conversations?
I'll say part of them they're okay and part of them they're not okay, because we're also having challenges like religious and cultural issues, where they believe you should not talk to a child about sex because it's a taboo. And some of them even they are saying it's sin to talk to a child about sex. And you see, currently, if I'm to be true to you, children are starting sex at as early as 4 years. Yesterday, I had a very, very productive meeting with the ECD teachers. They were telling me even young kids, a 4-year child is practicing sex for money. 4 year. 4 year. Sex for money. And
wait, willingly or being coerced by an adult?
With a child, we don't say they are willingly. A child does not, he doesn't have the willpower to give a consent for sex.
A 4-year-old child has no agency, basically.
Sure.
How do they even solicit? Because if they're doing it for money, there has been an adult involved somewhere.
There is. I can give one scenario where a class 7 was practicing sex and the neighbor was the one who was being paid. Well, the mother was walking in town. You see such situations. So, and the adults are in.
How old is the standard 7 child?
13 years.
13 years.
What is the sexual debut? Let's talk about urban centers. At what age do we have as documented at a time when children actually first encounter any sexual activity?
Currently, we are talking about the minimum is 15 years currently. But as the last research, but currently, we are having them even at 9 years.
Yes.
9 years. 9 years.
Wow.
There's something you mentioned about the knowledge gap.
Sorry?
You mentioned about the knowledge gap.
Yeah.
That is serious. And it can lead to many problems. But how do we determine the knowledge gap? How do we measure? How do we know that there's enough knowledge, there's insufficient knowledge? How?
So we talk about the indicators that we're having in the health facilities, the indicators we are having.
Yes.
When you see currently we are having in Nairobi County, even in Kenya, we are having high rate of gender-based violence, we are having high rate of teen pregnancy, we are having high rate of HIV infection currently among the adolescents. So those indicators, when you get such indicators at a high rate, it means there is something missing. That's why we have reached there as a country. So those indicators are the ones which are able to guide us about what is happening on the ground. And at the same time as the school health program from Nairobi County, we were able to do baseline assessment in February, and we saw there is knowledge gap.
You know, if you look at what you've just said, and I believe it is true, what else contributes to this? Okay, you said there's a knowledge gap, but what else leads adolescents to be involved in the activities that then provide data for the issues that we were speaking of? What else would bring them to this point?
Poverty.
Yes.
High rate of poverty. We have issues like the adolescents. They are selling their body even in order to get money to buy parts. And you find these young men, we call them Morio. They tell them that I want to help you so that you may not be having your periods and you'll be able to go to school. And then as a result, they sleep with them, they impregnate them. At the end, those girls, they forget that after the pregnancy, they'll go back to their menses. Number 2, we call them mature minors. Those are family led by children, and they have to look food for their siblings. So they end up practicing sex for money in order to provide for their families. Even our infrastructure currently, you find that a family of 10, they are living in one room, and we are having the same one room. The father and mother, they sleep there. They only partition with curtains. So you find that when they are having sex, the children are hearing what they are doing. And as a result, the children try to practice to get to find out if mom and dad are doing this, how do they feel? Because when they feel, you know what goes on when people are having sex. So the children tend to copy from their parents. Those things have really contributed, and I think it's a high time we stand and see what we can do as a person, as a community. I was talking about it as a person, what can I do? As a community, what can we do? As a school, what can we do? As a country, what can we do? As the whole county, what can we do about this?
The statistics we speak of, do they cover both urban and rural areas equally, or do we see differences in these two demographics?
We see some differences, and especially we've been working with Naomi. Mostly we are targeting young people from marginalized communities. The statistics are higher among marginalized communities.
In urban or in rural areas?
In rural areas.
Yes.
Yeah, but also in urban areas. But like in this context, I'm talking about marginalized communities, but in Nairobi County.
Okay, how do you determine that a community is marginalized? What do they need to have? What is it about them? What are the indicators?
The poverty levels in
one.
Poverty levels, and also like in this context of schools, we see most of the schools that we've been engaging. These schools have a very high number of students. So most of the time, let's talk about the teachers. The teachers are chasing deadlines. They also they have syllabus to cover, but at the same time, they don't have enough time, or rather, they can't be chasing two things. They can't be chasing to cover a syllabus, and at the same time, they also want to include information about sexual and reproductive health rights to the schools. So this is among one of the challenges that Naomi was talking about. I think it's bringing about the topic on information gap. Yes. Yeah.
You know, when we talk about poverty and we talk about urban areas, and you talk about the numbers, the bulk of the people who live in urban centers tend to live in these low rent areas, low economic, where there's some economical constraints.
Yes.
Okay. So you are saying that the weight of this problem, given the poverty levels, you are more likely to find them in places where people are essentially poor. That's what we're saying.
Mostly you are going to find where people are poor, but you're also going to find a slight percentage from where also people are very rich.
Yes.
Yeah. The higher percentage is where people are poor. But at the same time, as per our county, as per the country, even the rich people are now being affected.
And for the same reason? Poverty aside, of course. Yes.
Poverty aside, I've talked about knowledge gap.
Yes. You know, the reason why I asked this question and why I'm repeating it is this. I am looking at the number of NGOs and institutions that I know deal with young people, deal with adolescents. There are really many. Okay, people in the space of what we're calling reproductive health. Now, are we saying that, and given the messaging and given the sensitization processes that they've undertaken over time and over the years, and we are saying that with all this information, there's still a knowledge gap. That's what's concerning me.
So I just want to comment on that. We are having so many NGOs. We are having so many people participating in the reproductive health. Number one, I think we'll be launching our manual on school health program, and reproductive health is under the thematic area of gender issues. What kind of information are they giving it? And why are they in the space? Most of the time I ask myself, are we in this space to support the adolescents, or are we in this place to gain? Are you getting me? We are having that issue. Am I in this space to support the adolescents or to gain as a person? Are you getting me?
What would you be gaining?
Probably I'm getting funds from the donors.
And not doing anything?
And not doing anything.
But the basic that you just ought to do is pass on information.
Sure. Because if I'm to give a message today, I create awareness. It should be continuously for some times. After some time, if, for instance, let me give an example. I visit a school. It has got like 10 cases of teen pregnancy. I go talk to the learners in that school. I keep on, when you are supporting somebody, I was talking to people, I usually say, any adolescents who have started sex, it needs a process to be supported. Are you getting me? I go and give 2 sections in a school and I go. That will not support, that is not creating awareness. I go, I talk to the adolescents, I move with them. I give them information about referral pathway, and that is where now the NGOs have to work with the government, because when they go, who will continue with what they were doing? And it should be continuous. Are you getting me? So it's all about making sure, I'll talk to the NGOs, when you implement in a school, you are creating awareness about SRH, kindly go back and you see if you are successful. Because if I'm giving information, the way he's talking about giving information, I expect if we had 10 cases of pregnancy this year, next year we might have 2 or 3 or even 5, even 6. It will show we are doing something.
Yeah.
So the period they are giving those sections, they should be realistic, and they should be smart.
And that's the guideline you'll be launching soon.
Sure.
So there's a lot that's been said and done about youth, and especially youth getting to know about their reproductive health rights, right? We're saying there's been that lack of information. But then there have been very many actors, like City was asking as we went to the break. There have been very many actors in this space. There's been a lot of conversation in this space. There's the actors who are bringing and championing reproductive and health rights. And then there are those in the community who are pushing back. Religion, pushing back. Culturalists, pushing back. So then it means that there's a conversation that's happening about youth and what they need to know about their reproductive health rights. So why do we still see so many young girls and boys not knowing the full spectrum of their reproductive health issues when they only focus on pregnancy? It means that the young boys, because they know they don't have the risk of pregnancy, then they have nothing to worry about, right?
Sure.
Because the young girls are only bothered about as long as nisipate ball.
Sure.
The others, STI, everything else is secondary. Why do we still have this wide gap? I mean, what needs to happen to bridge this and accelerate that, Adeline?
I'd like to talk about, today we are here courtesy of the Mekwe project. The Mekwe project is implemented in 5 countries, and right now we're implementing it under Fawe Kenya. Fawe Kenya is trying to address issues of young people and especially adolescents in Nairobi. We are sensitizing young people on this book, and this is in partnership with the Nairobi County government. And so there's this book that was launched by the Ministry of Health in May 2022. It's called the Understanding Adolescents Guide. We are speaking about the information gap that already is seen. So this book touches on 16 topics, and the topics are such as reproductive health rights. We also talk about healthy relationships and communication, abstinence. Abstinence is one of the topics that we've realized that young people are yet to grasp, and we are trying to spread that information. We are trying to curb teenage pregnancies. We are trying to curb the high prevalence rate of infection, of HIV infection, and also so far we've sensitized 15 schools, and we are also sensitizing communities, that is parents and caregivers. So we are trying to still cover the gap cover the information gap that we are experiencing right now.
Is the information gap there because they don't have material? Is it because of a lack of access to material?
No, we can also say there hasn't been age-appropriate information, which is what we are trying to address right now. Naomi can talk about that.
Okay. Number one, you've asked why is the information gap there? I think it's a high time every stakeholder to act. If we reach the children, we are not reaching the parent, there is still a gap. If we reach the parent, we are not reaching the community. I talk of the Ngaos, there is still a gap. So there is need to come as stakeholders, everybody, to talk the issue of SRH. As you said, there is also a gap in boys there. Some few weeks ago, I was in a school and the boys requested if they can only see me by themselves without girls. Which means there's still a gap. As a country should accept also the boys are now at danger. Because if I empower a girl, then I'll have a boy who is not empowered. And at the end will remain at the same place. So I'll also ask the NGOs, because when the NGOs are coming down on the ground, they are coming with only programs for girls. So that gap has really created a lot. If I change the girl and I don't change the boy, so we are leaving somebody out, and they are all partners in these sexual activities. So the gap there is we should work as a team. We should not have an NGO doing it alone. And I've been talking to the NGOs mostly when they are doing inception in the county. We should meet the whole stakeholders. The nyumba kumi wazes, as a community, even in a chama, you can talk how you can support your children. If today we are women, we meeting in a chama, next time we say we come with our adolescents, you also give them information. So everybody should be involved, not the learners alone, even the parents. We should bring them back to know their roles in social reproductive health. Because we find that under the adolescence period, one of the psychologists, Erickson, said that in this period, there is identification versus confusion. So if you leave the adolescents away, you will get confused. And that is what which is giving us gap. We have to work as stakeholders, not one person alone, so that we may achieve.
You said age-appropriate information. And the booklet is addressing that age-appropriate information.
Sure.
Okay? So how is it different? What is it that what is age-appropriate when you talk about reproductive and sexual health rights? These are children who you're saying are mostly likely to be sexually active.
Sure.
Even if they're not sexually active, they know about sex. They're adolescents. They know about it. So what is age-appropriate? How do you package this information?
So in adolescence, we have early adolescence, which start at 10 to 13 years. We have middle adolescence, which starts from 14 to 16 years. And we have on late adolescence, which starts to 17 to 19 years. So at that juncture, you find that the message I'm giving a person in early adolescence is not the message that I'll give a person in late adolescence, because a person in late adolescence is when is when they're starting relationships, which may end up to marriage. And early adolescence is when they are starting discovering themselves. Are you getting me? So when a person who is discovering himself, I'll take him through the changes in his body, or rather her body, so that they may understand the changes. After they understand the changes, I'll talk about the challenges which they might face. And I'll take them through on how to deal with those challenges. And when I'm talking to a person who is in late adolescence, I'll talk to them about the relationships they're about to start, and what to do in those relationships, and what is their right in those relationships. Are you getting me? I cannot place a person who is almost starting relationship with a person who is in early adolescence, because the information will have conflict.
At what point are you going to tell these children about risky sexual behavior?
From as early adolescence also. Because when they start being attracted to opposite sex, they may tend to try to have sex, because that is where they start experimenting. So as early adolescence, I'll talk about risky sexual behavior. And at the same time, let us also remember, most of our adolescents, this is when we had HIV in Kenya. Some of them, they were born with HIV. I'll also talk about adherence here, and I'll also talk about disclosure, so that those adolescents, they may know their status and what to do, so that also we may prevent the high rate of HIV.
At what point will you talk about condoms and contraceptives?
According to our guidelines, our policies in Kenya, in primary and high schools, we are not supposed to talk about contraceptive.
This is the law.
This is the law. I'm not supposed to talk about condoms, about anything in schools. But that doesn't mean that I should stop it from there. If you get a child who is already sexual active and it happens, you simply refer to the nearby health center where they can be taken through, because there are special cases.
There's a term that was actually invented, because it didn't exist before HIV came in. mature minor. When somebody is already sexually active, the way they are managed or handled is the way you manage an adult. Yes, manner. However, there's a key component to what you refer to as age-appropriate material, is the development of the brain. The development of the brain of an adolescent in the early stage and as they go ahead, as they get older, how it is the brain is able to understand issues, how it's able to synthesize it, how it's able to relate to them, how it's able to relate to a multiplicity of other things, it is important. And I like the term that you used, age-appropriate. However, even if it's age-appropriate, how do you determine that the content is communicated effectively? Because content will probably be the same content.
Sure.
How do you craft it so that, how do you guarantee, and how then do you know that is appropriate? What are the responses that you get that informs you that this information has actually done what it's supposed to do?
So you find that after every section you have given an age-appropriate message. You do evaluation by requesting the adolescents or young people to ask you questions. So according to the questions they ask, you will be able to tell if they have gotten the content or not. At the same time, I like the way it's happening nowadays. When you are leaving the session after having a section with the adolescents, most of them, they'll follow you to get to know more. And this is when also you'll be able to detect a special case which need a follow-up in a health facility. So the age appropriate is good, but sometimes you will find more people. You've talked about mature minor.
Yes.
People who are 15 years, but they are reasoning like adults who are 18 years. I want to give you an incident. A 16-year-old came in the health facility, and she told me she need family planning. A Form 1 girl in a national school. And I took her to a room and I asked her, why I know I should not intrude on your rights, but I just want to get to find out why you need this long-term family planning method. And I want to assure you it's a right to receive this service, but we want to discuss let me take you as friends to get to know. So this girl told me, you know, ma'am, I'm married. And my husband is the one who is paying school fees. I don't have a father, I don't have a mother. And I'm bright. She was able to show me her results from school. I'm bright. And I want to finish my school. And the only way I can do it is by just sticking with this man. Are you getting me? You see now, this is one person who you cannot compare with the other 16-year-old normal children. So when you talk about that information, age appropriate, as we talk about age appropriate, we also have special cases. And this is the same person I cannot deny services. And those are their rights. So when you talk of age appropriate, we also have special cases.
Okay. So many of the people that you told us are susceptible to ending up with teen pregnancies and all are circumstance issues.
Sure.
So should we then incorporate circumstance appropriate messaging?
Sure.
Because you cannot just say age appropriate and say the message that you're passing a 13-year-old cuts across clearly because of their circumstances. If there's a 13-year-old who needs an 18-year-old kind of message.
Sure.
And there's a 13-year-old who may even be married, for all you know.
Yeah.
Sure, that is. That's what I was talking about. What I'll say, but as our guidelines and policies in Ministry of Education, in collaboration with Ministry of Health, when you get such special cases, that's where we are going to school. We have to refer them in health facilities. The messages are not supposed to be given in school.
There's a component that you mentioned, parents, caregivers, guardians. How do you reach these people? How do you reach this category of citizens?
So one of the ways we reach, we usually have section at the DCC's office and chief barazas, and we also visit religious centers like churches and mosque, and in partnership with Adolescent team, we've been able to do community sections to them. And currently, even we are planning to call parents in school so that we may give them this health information. Because also one of the things that is bringing now issues with our adolescents and our parents is also the age gap. The way I was raised is not the environment which I was raised in is not the same environment which is currently with our adolescents. Because when I was raised, I remember just hearing songs from radio and things. But our adolescents now, they can access media at any given time. They can even access pornographic sites. They can access different materials. So, and you see, as a parent, maybe I never went through this. So we need to impact knowledge on them, even how to take control of their children and support them. And currently, I'm talking of supporting the adolescents. Supporting, but not judging. Ourselves, we were raised, I remember ukiingia kwa nyumba 6, you will tell my father with capital letters where you are from.
And underline in red.
But today, if my son comes in the house, if I'll say, hi, mommy, are you okay? I was the other day. Na tunaanza kucheka. But with my father, we used not to have communication. Mm-hmm. And this one, currently, it cannot be brought to this generation. I think you can tell it by what the Gen Zs are doing. Mm-hmm. There need to be dialogue. And the parents should be taken through on how to do dialogues with their adolescents in their homes.
I'm interested in finding out how you do this, because that knowledge gap with the caregivers, the parents, and the guardians is probably what leads to what we're discussing here. Because if there is that level or there's that absence of knowledge, it means at the point when children are growing up and they're being taken care of, this is not something which is discussed at home.
Sure.
Yes.
It is.
So it's more or less left for them to figure out how this thing works.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to add on to the age-appropriate information. On top of that, we are also advocating for giving out the right information. For instance, there's an instance that we went to school, and there were cases of 2 girls that were being abused by an older woman, but it took them a long time to report the cases because they didn't have the right information. They didn't know that perpetrators of gender-based violence can also be people from the same gender. So we are also advocating for sharing of the right information, and in this context, information such as gender-based violence can also be perpetrated by people from the same gender.
When a young boy and girl walk into a health facility and they say, you know what, so mambo imefanyika, kumeenda vibaya, makosa imetendeka, there's pregnancy involved, and they're saying we'd like to terminate, what happens?
So, for everything, you don't judge. Number one, as a health worker, you should not judge. They have a right to be listened for. So when a young person has entered the health facility, she said she's pregnant. Number one, ensure there is privacy and get to understand why she wants to procure abortion. At the end, I will not make a decision for her, but at the same time, abortion is not legal in Kenya. I'll take her through the effects of abortion, and I'll take her through the law of Kenya. Because remember, at the adolescent stage is where again they usually break laws a lot. So when you have to give her, the way Adelaine is saying, right information. And also, these adolescents need support. It's just one day ago, I met a girl, I was somewhere, an adolescent. I like spending some time alone writing and watching YouTube to get to know what, when you are working in that field, you have to be at par with the knowledge there, even the sharing that is being used there. An adolescent came and hugged me. And she told me she wants to commit suicide, she wants to do everything. Most of the time when you're a health worker, you have to put everything down and deal with this situation. Give them the right information and let them make a choice. And most of the time, they usually, after you talk to them, and you cannot do it only for one day, you can give her like around 5 to 6 sections. After that, they'll come out and they'll see the positive on why they should deliver this baby. Because the one thing they also don't know, they also don't know about re-entry policy. Re-entry policy as an adolescent, you have a right, after you've delivered, you have a right to go back to school.
Without any question asked.
Without any questions, and they should accept you back. So I will also talk about re-entry policy. For him to have information, it is not the end of this. And at the same time, we work with I work with AYT, I work with Fawe Kenya, I work with Tumikia Mtoto, I work with different organizations. I'll be able also to secure her. If she comes from a poor background, I'll be able to just to make a call and say, kindly support for me these adolescents, and they'll get even bursaries after they deliver.
Okay. Ladies, we thank you very much for joining us today and for this conversation. We've been talking about the access to information addressing sexual reproductive health rights for adolescents, joined by Naomi Kigani, School Health Department in Nairobi County, and Adeline Nyange, Project Officer, Africa Youth Transformation.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.